Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Inspiration to Achieve. Welcome to another episode of Inspiration to Achieve, where I share with you inspiration that will help you to turn your aspirations to transformation and also inspire others. It's about providing you with insights to achieve your life and business goals as well as to thrive. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing inclusion, and diversity, bringing awareness to your business. It is a topic that I love a lot, and it's something that I wanted always to discuss and bring. It's one of those topics that feels like a banana skin topic. But it's useful to have rich conversations. And today I'm coming to you from Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can gain access to for a replay on my YouTube channel. And going forward, you will find me on a radio station near you soon. So today, I just want to make sure that all the technology is working accordingly before I carry on with this. So today, I have with me a guest, and my guest is going to be coming on shortly after I've done a few conversations with you. I'm really excited about my guest today. My guest today is Adebayo Onafuwa. So we shall be having our conversations today. Just give me 2 minutes while I do a quick check because I'm struggling to find my broadcast on the right channels. 1 minute. Okay, so let's go and see. Okay, so we'll carry on. And what is inclusion and diversity, and what is it all about? It's the buzzword at the moment. You hear a lot about it. I personally am interested in it for various reasons, and I've been interested in it for years now. So it's not necessarily something that has come to my radar just more recently. So join me, and when you join me, say hi and good morning. Good morning to everyone that is joining me, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining me from. And welcome to these rich conversations today. So for me, diversity and inclusion has been very important for many years. And the reason why is because I worked in the internal audit world, where at some point corporate governance became very, very important, and people had to take note and pay attention. And because of that, I was aware of the need to have diversity on boards. And when auditing, you looked at how people were implementing their inclusion and diversity policies. But aside that, I remember stumbling on a TED talk by Shirley Sandberg, the CEO, the chief CEO, the COO of Facebook, where she was talking about the problem with not having enough female leaders or female people in places of authority. And that really piqued my interest. And one of the things she was talking about was the fact that data was showing that women were underrepresented at all levels of decision making worldwide. And the truth is, this hasn't changed a lot over the last couple of years, despite that time she was talking about. But on a positive note for me, one of the celebrations is the fact that you have Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who has just become the Director General of the World Trade Organization, and her journey really inspires me. And also having Kamala Harris, who's become the Vice President in the United States, that also inspires me. So there's a lot about it. But also, if you are coming from an organization and you're watching this, or a corporation and you're watching this, you recognize that if you are subject to having to either comply or explain corporate governance, you would know that the revised code now actually says that your company policy should be promoted and implemented more broadly beyond just gender, and to show how this links to progress on achieving your company objectives. And I think that's great. So this topic has also become more in people's radar, more in your face, more something you can't ignore. Why? Because of the race issues that happened last year. So there's a lot of awakening. And I have with me my guest today, Adebayo, who obviously has expertise in this area because he is this is his area of specialism, and this is what what I would call his bread and butter area. So I will invite him on now, and I want you to welcome him as we go on this journey to talk about to have rich conversations about this. So welcome, welcome, welcome to Inspiration to Achieve. Adebayo, it's so nice to have you on board. Thank you for
Thank you
being.
so much. Thank you, Patience. Thank you for having me on your lovely show. Hello, everybody.
You're welcome. So please take the time, just introduce yourself to my audience, and let them know what you do, who you are. We're looking forward to the next couple of minutes spending some time with you today.
Wow, yeah. Where do I start from? I've been really privileged to be on an incredible journey over the last 20 plus years, working in different organizations within different capacities. I've worked in everything from tech industries to media to healthcare to hospitality to hotels to recruitment, consulting. But for me, diversity really stands out. So if I were to introduce myself, I probably will say that I am a human value dispense machine. And that's how I love to put it. I have a
Wow.
huge passion for people,
Mm,
and more importantly, I have a passion to help organizations transform their culture and inspire their workforce so that they can create the changes that they need to step into the future with their vision. So it's all about adding value to what
mm,
people do and who people are. And by so doing, then you can create the changes that are needed. I'm deeply, deeply passionate about new ideas that will transform people. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to be able to help organizations do just that. And right now, I'm excited with the opportunity to work with a startup job board called Diverse Jobs Matter. And we are
mm.
truly partnering with clients that are passionate about improving their diverse workforce. So I'm happy to be here on your Inspiration to Achieve platform to just talk about um, diversity and inclusion.
Yes, and being hands-on and playing a role within it obviously is very useful. So it means you are getting your hands dirty and getting involved with inspiring people. So that means that you will, you'll be able to give a fairly good definition on it. And I always like to start with definitions because I think it's just useful to have definitions or to have descriptions or perspectives. So, what would you say inclusion and diversity is?
But to be honest, diversity and inclusion means different things to different people. And at different times. And diversity, for instance, has different levels within, with our society or organization. For me personally, diversity is who you are, what makes you different from other people, what makes you unique. So, from an organization's perspective, diversity is understanding their employees, whether the current or future, and understanding what makes them unique or different from other employees, whether it's their learning capabilities, whether it's the physical or the emotional or the psychological or the social or the intellectual needs or differences that the employees have. If I were to paint a picture, I would probably say imagine yourself as a 5 star or 7 star hotel, and in your hotel, you're welcoming different types of guests. You have guests with disability, you have guests with families coming in with children, you've got the elderly, you've got people coming in groups, you've got business people, you've got people renting your spaces for training. Now, all these guests have different needs. For you, that
Yeah.
is what diversity is. The fact that every guest has a unique need that you're addressing and you're catering for. Now, inclusion then means that having understood what diversity is and how, the uniqueness of your guests are, that you are then making the adjustments. You're looking internally to make the adjustments to ensure that your guests are welcomed and they feel comfortable and they can have access to your facilities. And I think that's where the challenge for a lot of companies, are and we find themselves. They try to be diverse, but how inclusive are they in terms of ensuring that they have the right facilities, they have the right training in place that ensures that people feel themselves within the workplace.
Yes, I like that, and I like the focus on need. I like the attention on talking about need, and the example is very brilliant. I always, when I look at inclusion and diversity, I say diversity is for me obviously a seat at the table of different kinds of people. So if you have an organization, a group, a company, and even let's even look at family, you need a seat at the table for the different people. So that's not enough though, because you can have a seat at the table and you don't exist necessarily. You are invisible to everybody else. So for me, inclusion then means you have a voice, you have an opportunity, and you are considered within decision making and the kind of things that are happening, or with in determining the future or the current situations that are happening. And again, I work with introverted women, and so for me that would include an introvert being there, and knowing that they are there, like you said, having that different need that they have, and therefore making sure that what facilitates their ability to be included is considered and is in there. So I like this definition, but I also like the fact that some people switch inclusion with diversity and belonging. What do you think about that? Because there is, instead of inclusion, because people include people, but then they segregate and they don't feel like they belong even though they are included. So that next level is belonging. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, so they all go hand in hand, and you again using the example of the hotel. First, you have to understand the need of the differences of the different types of guests. Then you have to make the adjustment to be able to ensure that your guests have access to your facilities. And belonging is then, helping them feel at home, helping them feel themselves, removing the difficulties, removing the barriers, whether it's inspiring your employees, whether it's creating a culture, whether is helping to create a buy-in from them. It's just removing all those barriers that create a limitation, for your diverse employees.
Yeah, that's exciting and interesting. So when we talk about this as well, there's a bit of an echo. I don't know whether that translates, but hopefully we can get that corrected somewhere, as technology is always. I can hear an echo. But we want to talk about also bias. This is something that's always associated, and it's an associated conversation. It's another slippery banana conversation that people don't want to have, because it's like once you start going down that route, some people have sensitivity. And even in the news recently, there were some CEOs that were saying it's all a load of rubbish. So and therefore they had to be held accountable for saying that. So, but also, just talk about that in terms of how this impacts in the way people handle inclusion and diversity, conscious and unconscious bias.
It's a very interesting, aspect of improving diversity, to be honest. Um, my personal opinion is that you can never really eliminate or fully eliminate bias, whether it's conscious or unconscious. What we aim to do is to keep reducing it. And the best way to do that is not necessarily to enforce unconscious bias trainings, and talks and systems. You have to create a buy-in. You can tell me I need to learn about unconscious bias because I'm in recruitment or a hiring manager or a leader. But if I don't really see the benefits of that to my work, to myself, then it will just be a tick box exercise. So the first step to unconscious bias is really to create that buy-in. To lead by example, to help people see, first of all, what is the benefit of diversity to your organization? How is it adding value? And what is the benefit of that even to the employee? Now, a lot of recruitment managers already find it difficult trying to go through the different numbers of CVs and applications to try to hire the best talent for the organization. Putting the pressure on them to say, well, you must ensure that your shortlist is, it has a diverse pool inside, is unnecessary pressure if they don't have that buy-in, if they don't see, if they're not motivated, to be able to do it in the first place. And then they just pick up anybody's CV that, just fits into the tick box, and they're not really caring if they are looking for the right talent from that diverse pool. And that's one of the exciting aspects of what we do at Diverse Jobs Matter, because our shortlist candidates that we provide to our clients not only represent the diversity proportion of the local population where you are. So for instance, in London, the diversity proportion is 44% ethnic minority. So we make sure that the shortlist of, say, 10 candidates that we provide to you, at least 4 or 5 of them, come from the ethnic minority proportion. And another way we help to reduce bias is to make sure that our CVs are anonymized, so they come blind CVs to you. So what you're focusing on as the recruiter is really diving into the skills, the competencies, the qualities, the experiences of the candidate, rather than, the privileges of where they studied or where they live. So I think it's great that organizations are doing lots of training around, unconscious bias. Any learning is good learning, but for you to have that learning be transformed into, results, you have to create a buy-in. The people learning it need to really understand why they are learning it. If not, they're just going to act it out as a tick box.
Yes, exactly. And I think one of the things, when I think of unconscious bias or conscious bias, I think we all have bias, like you said. And that's very interesting. You talk about what you focus on, because many times we don't realize that when something comes, you first of all you put your face or your eye on one particular area of it. And that's how I see you don't realize you're doing it, but the moment somebody walks through the door, you've already made a judgment about them. And they say this a lot about our interviews, when you're attending interviews, that you have to make a first impression. You have to recognize what that person is going to be thinking of about you. It's part of the reason why I started, when I go for interviews, I tend to think, okay, I'm black, and if I wear dark suits, I know people like that. So I would either wear blue or I would put some color in it somewhere, because I don't want you to miss me. And I don't want you to just focus on just my color on my face. I want you to see other things about me. So it's a conscious effort to kind of counter the conscious bias that I know, or the unconscious bias that is going on. And I like the fact, and I know the fact is, because it's unconscious, you have to make the unconscious conscious. And so sometimes I believe that that's where the training has benefit in organizations, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that this is actually how it's played out, or how it will be interpreted by somebody else. So that training offers that opportunity, but it's also where you are actually conscious of it, yet it's coming from a place of the way you were brought up, the fears that you have. If training includes an understanding of other people, and if the training is rich enough, it will help you begin, like you said. If you buy in, if the employee buys in, you can't force employees to buy in. We have different values, we have different ethics that guide us. So that buy-in will come from, you have to look at the people that you employ. Are they aligned to your values? And if they're not aligned to your values, if you try to introduce them to building other values, it doesn't work. So they have to have a buy-in even from the time that you are getting them on board into the values and the ethos and the culture that you want to create. And that brings me to the next question, which is, what is a free and fair culture cultivation so that it aids inclusion and diversity? How do you create a free, fair? Because when I was in the corporate world doing audit, it was a lot about what is fair and what freedom do people have as well, not just, and that is considered, and you can see it actually in audits and having conversations with people. Can they experience the fairness of what is happening? And that is, do they feel included? Do they feel belonging? Do they feel listened to? So how can cultivating such a culture really help with inclusion and diversity?
So I mean, we we can look at this from just the usual typical standards that are expected from a good organization.
Yeah.
Things like having an open door policy where your employees, can approach you and talk to you, and you're there to listen to them, and they are assured that, you will take them seriously. Simple things like that even have nothing to do with diversity and inclusion, that just have to do with good, operational standards, good employee relations. Those things need to clearly be in place. Yeah, you need to have systems in place that clearly show your processes for promotion, for career development. And that becomes transparent. As long as it's transparent, then the employees know that I have a fair chance of getting to the next level. Um, but if it's not transparent enough, then you leave room for doubt. You leave room for certain employees to feel, oh, I was looked over. Therefore, they don't really value me here.
Mm.
And that also needs to start from the leadership. There has to be a lot of engagement, around building the right culture, building the right system. You have to take a strong point on favoritism and root it out, and and show that you as an organization, are fair to all your employees. You have to build a community, or even a committee that helps to address and and holds you accountable within the organization, to say, we don't feel this process was done right. Because sometimes, as a leader, you don't necessarily see what's going on at middle management level, but you need to be able to have advocates within those places that can say, this is not right, we're bringing it to your attention, and you immediately address it. Again, it just goes into that sense of belonging. If I know I'm being valued, if I know I'm being respected, if I know I'm being appreciated, if I know I'm being supported, then I will not see any reason to doubt that the company is does not want me here. Also, what career paths are very important. They've been there forever, but we need to even be clearer on them now, because when somebody joins you, they need to know where they want to progress to in the next 3 to 5 years. And you have to make that process clear. And you have to make clear the requirements for them to be able to get there. But you also have to provide the training, the support, whether it's the mental support, whether it's creating mentors and coaches within the organization, whether it's creating network support systems within the organizations to be able to get them there. And remember, not everybody develops at the same pace in the same way. Not everybody learns in the same way. So part of diversity and inclusion is understanding the different ways people learn and addressing that and supporting them and helping them find their feet so that they can flourish within that aspect as well.
I like a lot of points you brought up, and it kind of resonates with me, even my own personal experience in the workplace. So you're right in saying that, a lot of times policies you do top down, and you need to consider the bottom up effect. Like you said, the gatekeeper of any diversity and inclusion policy is that department manager, that team manager. And the experience that your staff will be having will be filtered through these levels before they never really get to you because you have given the delegation. And one of my experiences in this is, take, for example, in a workplace where you can't treat a single lady like you treat a lady who is married with kids, or like a lady who is menopausal. Strangely, that's detail and that's a lot of work, but there are different needs and there are different challenges that they will experience. The lady who is single might not have kids that will disrupt her, but she will have periods, for example, that will mean that when she's on there, she's very hormonal. And there might be a policy that allows you to work from home without announcing that, oh, this is the time of the month, for example. And you have a manager that is understanding and builds that in. Then you have the woman who either is pregnant and some days she can't come to work, or she has after having kids. I experienced this in the workplace, one of my workplace many years ago. I remember that there was so much pressure on me from home and for my kids, and the struggle was really real. I wasn't focusing at work, and I was working full time. So I just made the decision with my husband, I'm going to give up on my money and just going to go part time. I went to my managers then. The sad thing with it is that all my managers then were female, but they said, oh no. Some said, actually, I don't have kids. I have cats and I don't take time off for my cats. Why should you have part time? And I was like, what? Fortunately for me, I struggled along. I would be crying on my way from work back home. This was really real. And this is mental health issue, right? So I then get back and they changed the management and they brought an interim manager, a male, to the place. That's why sometimes you have this bias. You think women will be more considerate than men, right? It doesn't always work that way. And I went into the office for my normal. He wanted to meet the team, which is a great practice. He wanted to meet each individual team to tell him what team member to understand how do you perceive the department and would you like to do for you to do your job properly. I think this is a good practice for communication. And so I go into the office and I say to him, sir, I just need your help because I want to do part-time. This is my situation. I'm almost like a single parent because my husband walks away. So I'm the only one and I'm constantly running late. There are roadblocks there. And he listened to me only for 5 minutes. And he was like, this is absolutely a no-brainer. You are not going to deliver anything in this department in this state of mind. You need the part-time. It's not a question of we want to give you part-time. If we want you to stay here, you need it. And he signed on the dotted lines straight away and I got my 2 days off. So what am I saying? You can treat people equal, but in equality, you've got to consider we're all women, but we have different needs. Menopausal women go through a horrible time, headaches, sweatiness. If an office is too cold or too whatever, you need to let them have the space. So that's one example. The other, and that's one example of how your middle manager or the gatekeeper filter the policy. There's policy there. Give people part time. It's clearly written, especially in local government. It's written there. Give people part time. Flexible working conditions are there, but the personal values of the people around were not willing to give me. What about introverts and going to meetings? I had an opposite experience of having an introverted boss who understood the needs of introverts. So, what did they do to make it free and fair? They said they would send you the meeting agenda before the meeting because introverts take time to think through so they can participate. She observed that in the meetings, some of us were not talking as we should, and some were quick witted. So, what did she do? Being an introvert herself, she was able to tap into that. But being somebody who was into fighting for women and all that stuff is one of the things I love about her. She was able to do this. So she was able to get that thinking. So when you're thinking about free and fair, it's not going to be a cheap, quick work, is it? From your experience, it's going to be actually really deeply being involved in it, having the right foundations, creating the right culture, monitoring that culture. Of course, like the changes in the corporate governance now mean that you have to prove at that top level, which means the board is also going to be monitoring it. But what if you're a small business and you don't have a board? That brings me to talk about small and medium, or small one-man businesses. They can talk about, oh, all this inclusion and diversity is for the big guns, the ones that have the money to spend on, waste on the training. Not us. It's not for us. We are just firefighting here. So, what would you say is important to consider about, this in the area of inclusion and diversity and how to cultivate it when you are, a small business or a one-man business? Why is it important? Yeah.
Actually, it's more important for small businesses or startups to be able to get it right from the beginning, because you still have a smelly blank canvas, and so you can immediately with your small team start putting in place the culture that will then grow into accommodating your diverse workforce. It's sharing the ideas that you're learning from conversations like this ones and other trainings with your team, and doing things together to see the impact of diversity. Now, understand that any organization where they are right now are diverse. Okay, even if you're a two-person business, you are already diverse. But what we're really talking about is improving diversity. It's expanding diversity. And so, first of all, I want to encourage every organization. It doesn't matter where you are right now, you are diverse. But we want to encourage you to continue to improve that. We want you to encourage you to expand it so that you can allow other people within the diversity bracket to be able to come in and feel at home within your business. There are lots of things small businesses, startups can do. There are lots of policy, there are lots of templates, there are lots of trainings, there are a lot of lovely speakers like yourself that can step into their organization and inspire them, help them really become more thoughtful about how they want to expand or increase their workforce in the future. So I think it's easier for startups and small businesses to get it right than organizations that already have a large number of employees that are now trying to create a better balance within their diverse workforce.
And it's true, you're right. When you say it's easier for the one-man business or for the small business, it makes sense only because they say the young shall grow, right? And Steve Covey is the one that says begin with the end in mind. You're not going to stay small forever. and you're not going to be a one man forever. So if you think about foundations, that's one of the things I always say to people and my clients who are starting off. I say, you are in a hurry to build the roof. But if you build the roof and then the house is not standing properly, it's not the roof you fix, it's the foundation you fix. And underpinning is always the most expensive thing in the whole world to do with a building. So if you think about building the foundations, it's like building a house. You have to solidify the foundation so you don't have to underpin it. So as an individual, I personally, as a small business growing, I've already started to think about building a team. I tend to think about using my personality profiling so that the strength of whoever is going to come along will be different from mine and complement me. That's already diversity. That's one way of thinking about it. Are you applying? So I would suggest you ask your team or whoever you're going to employ, they do a DISC personality profile. And you now understand, are we just too alike that we will not work together? But even if we are alike, how do we use our strengths differently? Then also, I would suggest that you consider, you know, the foundations that you're building in terms of yourself and your values and your bias that you can overcome, so that you will get the best, the pick of the crop. I say that the truth about it is you will be leaving money on the table. So you might have diversity. That's the first step, right? But the next step is, if you don't have inclusion, including all strengths with understanding, it's like going to somewhere and making a sale and actually leaving money on the table. That's how it feels when you are not including all your resources. As human beings are called resources, which I don't agree. All your talents and all your gifts that you have, not necessarily resources, but the human beings and all their gifts and talents, if they come to the table, you're more likely to be heading towards lots of ideas and not run out of ideas, but also different perspectives. So I think having that mindset and setting it up from the beginning is really great. And all the things you have said, the training is important, bringing people in, you going on your own training as well is important. Then when people want to employ, obviously with you and what you do, is you can take the headache off, right? If they want to start right, they can come to you and you will take all the headache off to make it easier for them. They're not ticking the box necessarily, but you are helping them follow the process in a way that they now feel they have done the right things, they have put everything in place. It's like, for me, the internal auditor, the word is they have
Yeah.
put the controls in place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't, as an organization, from A to D. You don't want to jump from acknowledging where you are to D for diversity. You've got to go through B and C. And B is creating behavioral changes, understanding the culture that is needed. And C is then creating the new mindset, creating the engagement, creating that new culture that is then going to drive you to D for diversity. And there are lots of consultants out there like myself. I'm privileged to work with a job board that is trying to help clients do that through their recruitment processes. But there are lots of other ways you can build culture. You can include training and engagement that will help create that new thinking, that open-mindedness, to be able to help you and your employees embrace diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's so. Obviously, I've shared some of my own stories, and it'd be nice for you to share some of yours as well. In terms of roles and struggles with having to, like I said in the announcement of the post, the elephant in the room is what happened. The awareness, and the more, I have been dealing with this since many years, being in audit, so it's not new to me. But last year, for many people who don't do the kind of job I do, or who are not involved in it in any way, it hit them on the face, and it was a big shocker. But it was then, they say, when you see something, you can't unsee it. you have to do something with it. So, in your journey, how have you experienced, the lack of it or the good of it, like what I have shared too, and how, in terms of feelings and emotions around it, and where the journey is at the moment for most people in terms of making a difference? Yeah.
Yeah, so personally, I would say I've been very fortunate. I'm privileged that I wouldn't say I have, experienced it, at that level myself. I've been very fortunate to really work with leaders, with directors that, are people passionate as well. And so the reverse has been the case in my journey. I've been able to, within every organization that I've worked with, I'll be able to really engage with the leaders and build in systems that improved culture and that created better employee relationships. And we were able to work on projects that identified where people were lacking. So, for instance, if you wanted to, increase the number of women, at management level, then you're having to look at what do they need, what are the gaps, and how do you fill those gaps? Is it flexibility so that they have more time to be able to balance between work and home? Do some of them need extra training in terms of expertise? Are you putting in place systems where they can uh, do a certification or get a degree, and once they succeed in it, you pay for it? There are lots of different ways that you can help and support to ensure that your employees are getting all the skills they need to then be able to step up into that gap. But as a human resource, professional, I have seen a lot, and you're right. There are a lot of things you cannot unsee, and that as well has driven my passion and my conviction that we need now more than ever to be able to work together, collaborate, and just make sure that we are improving culture, improving diversity, creating a better environment for our employees to flourish as well. There are opportunities that that this person should have gotten that promotion, and then it becomes clear that they're not getting that promotion because the manager doesn't see them fitting into the so-called club of who they see as managers. And I've had difficult conversations within my role with such leaders to say, I'm sorry, as a HR professional, I believe in fairness as a human being, and I cannot accept that. I cannot stand for that. And sometimes that has led me to actually reconsider my continued employment within that organization. But on the other side, I've worked with brilliant leaders that are excited about the opportunity because they truly understand that if you create a better environment for employees to flourish and grow, they will stay with your company longer. They will give 100% time and time again. They will go above and beyond. And so let's just be more thoughtful about where we want to be, where we want to grow to, and let's really invest in our employees, invest in their development, because they are the ones that are really going to push our brand and even attract other people to join our brand in the future.
Hmm. You're right. The struggle is real. It's real for people. And what I find is, so now we're talking about the race issues that were raised last year, which is awakening people to the need for inclusion and diversity even more. and to look at where are we having bias or not, and where is there fairness or lack of it, where are people being treated because of their color, because of their background. There's a book that I came across as a result of all that. What I liked was I had friends, and I belong in a community where people began to say, I want to know, I want to understand. I'm an executive director with the John Maxwell team, and they went straight on to do a lot of work. They brought in a speaker, Miles McPherson, and he spoke about, the topic of the third option. And that is a brilliant book, a way to see things. It's not you versus me, is we, how do you bring all that, and the language and everything is to help people to really come together and not see that the difference is dividing, but the difference is enriching. And so for me, in my experience all throughout, it's always, I feel like there are places where I've had to stand up and not consider it, even though people are considering it. So there is this phrase from Miles that says, you feel guilty when you do something wrong, but you feel shame when you feel like you are something wrong. And that's exactly how sometimes in an organization you feel like you are something wrong when you're not being included. Something doesn't feel right about you. And you just carry that sense of shame. And speaking to a lot of Black women, because mainly I communicate, there is that feeling that they have. But because it's shame, you don't talk about it, right? You just carry your head. And the truth about it is, people are afraid of what they don't know. So when you ask people to engage with each other, even in the work sense, I love when my son was looking for work, I told him, if they don't have social events, find another place. Because in those social events, I told him, you're young, you don't need to be tied to non-social places, or, we looked beyond the money. We looked at the cultures of where he was going to get a job. And the reason being, I have been through it, and I needed for him to not have to suffer the way I suffered. That's how I used the information I had. But I see my role anywhere I go as educational, to educate people. So a lot of my friends last year said, what's your experience? How can you educate us? Because we're white, we might not have perspective of it. And I was able to share with them, even gift them books that they could read, and just to expand and take away that bias. So our role and personal involvement, like you already are able to do it in, we all need to take personal responsibility in bringing consciousness. And also to, I'd say that you need to show people how to treat you as well. So for me, that's why I work with introverted women. I work with Black or any woman to be able to find your assertiveness, and to be able to find your courage and your tenacity to stand up and have self-confidence, self-esteem, because all those things make you to define how somebody should treat you. Bullies like to find the weakest person in the room, right? So we build leadership skills as well. Leadership skills mean that you're not aggressive, but you're courageous. You are value driven. And all those things help you to stand up in your own power and deliver. And I think those are some of the ways I feel like what impact is done for me has brought a positive view to how I work with people, but how I live my life.
And
And
you're right, a lot of people from the ethnic minority are suffering because they work sometimes twice as hard just to be able to prove that they deserve to be in that organization. And time and time again, it's easy for them to be bypassed when it comes to promotion. And that's why you sometimes see that at middle top management level, you hardly have any representation at all from this, ethnic minority groups. But at the same time, you also have, people from the other diverse bracket that are true champions of diversity, that are, creating the conversation, challenging other people to say, we all need to do this. You have organizations that are beginning to say, well, unless we can see your diversity report, unless we can see that you are, taking key actions to improve diversity, we won't do business with you. We have conversations around, where are you now? Show us where you are now. Show us where you want to be, and show us how you intend to get there. So it's really tough right now, but we just need to continue to engage. We need to continue to enlighten, and there are different creative ways that we can go about, creating that buy-in, building that conversation, changing that mindset. I always tell people that there's nothing impossible that we cannot achieve. If we as human beings can come together and put other human beings on the moon, then there's nothing here on earth that is impossible that we cannot achieve. So it all comes down to the belief system, to the mindset, to the commitment, not just from leadership, but ensuring that they are creating a buy-in from their managers, to ensure that everybody's open-minded towards diversity. Yes, it's tough. Yes, it's not easy. You can't be five best friends, and suddenly, one best friend brings in a sixth person, and you just expect everybody to get along. It takes time, but there has to be that willingness or open-mindedness to get to know that person, to understand that person. And once you're open to doing that, then there'll be opportunity to allow that person into your circle as well. And so we need to ensure that we are really just creating a buy-in. I think that's just the key to changing where we are in terms of diversity.
Mhm. That brings to mind, the quote or the saying by Steve Covey. If you want to have the win-win approach, it's not about seek to understand rather than be understood. And in the process, you're developing that win-win approach, which will benefit you as an individual. It will benefit, I say that even as a parent, I need to think about diversity. My children are two different. I have a boy, I have a girl, and the emotional reactions to the things I say, they're different. For me to achieve a win-win for my family, I need to consider the diversity. I can't just put them in the same bucket and treat them the same way, especially with my daughter. She will give me an earful and she will tell me when, she will, more than, my son is a gentleman, but my daughter, so you can't have the same approach. But at the same time, you have to exist in a family unit. So when people think that these conversations are far off from them, start with family and think about diversity. Start with your extended family and think about diversity. How do you include without, how do you include, all the quarrels and fights and so on that come to pass? Is how do you create peace? How do you include people without, feeling like you're going to lose yourself in the process, or you can still maintain yourself and things like that. So this has been very rich conversations we've had. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot from you. Is there any final words you would like to share with the audience, that we haven't covered? Any perspective, any wisdom, that you want to share?
Well, I mean, it's been a wonderful engagement. Thank you so much for your time and for having me here. I think one of the things that has been on my mind for a short time now is, I keep hearing people say, "Oh, this people of color," and so on, and it, for me, it doesn't really sit well with me, because I believe that everybody is of color, regardless of whether you're white or black or mixed race, or, we are all people of color. And so we need to stop using, that phrase, people of color, to represent ethnic minorities. I think creating that is really not helping the movement for coming together, and seeing each other as equals and partners in the human journey.
Mm. And I even think that the word minority in itself is already defining.
Yeah,
And I know it's hard to change that language, but the moment you, and I know it's about the larger population and people who are more than others. But the main thing, Ufoma is saying, I've learned so much today. Thank you. Brilliant. Yeah, we're glad you gained a lot. But the point there is, it's words also create that reality. So the fact is, if you're a minority, can you ever be major? Can you ever be important? So I like the fact that you brought this up. The word minority already, even speaking it to myself and calling myself a minority, is already creating a mindset of second classness within me.
exactly.
And I think that's those kind of little things might help the world when you're not looking at somebody and already in your mind, even if you don't say it, you are a minority. So the bias is already there. Who are you to talk to me? You're a minority, that kind of thing. So I think that's those kind of things, our language. If we can work on those things, change is painful, change takes time, but if you focus, you can birth it. So I really want to thank you, for the time, the rich conversations. Um, and the truth is, before I let Adebayo go, it's our culture, for me, a culture when I run this, inspiration to achieve, to always leave with quotes. So I have one of my own, and I have one from Maya Angelou. And Maya Angelou, I love her. And this is what she says about diversity and race. She says, we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter their color. And so for me, I think that is very rich and enriching. And a final quote from me is this: we need to see the richness that comes from diversity, the blend of personalities, strengths, talents, experiences can be enriching. Not going further to inclusion is like leaving money on the table. You may well be leaving behind some of your best inputs for success. So I think that this is a topic everybody should take on board. I want to apologize for a little bit of the sound quality. I'm not sure what is going on with the microphones, but I hope that you enjoyed spending time with us today. And I will post a link to Adebayo's LinkedIn page and all his social media. Connect with him, and connect with me as well. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which will have a link as well once this is done, because you can get a replay and catch a replay, and you'll ensure that you never miss any of these rich conversations or any of the lives that I do separately. So I just want you to know that you are of value. I want you to know, as you're watching this, that if nobody's rooting for your success, I'm rooting for your success. I'm wishing you the very best, and I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been great having you on board. For those that joined us live, for those that will watch this, feel free to comment and free to connect with us and communicate. Thank you very much, and take care, and God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.